Hi everyone and welcome or welcome back to the channel. This is Carmina, astrologer and card reader, and today I wanted to talk to you about a very interesting transit, and that's gonna be Saturn with the South Node and Pluto, all of them in Capricorn for about 17 months. It's gonna happen between the 6th of November and the 6th of November 2018 and the 22nd of March 2020. So it's going to be 17 months. Of course, during this time span, there will also be other planets, other faster moving planets than these that are going to be in the sign of Capricorn for a month or more or less if it's the moon. But these three, I think it's very important to see how their effects are on this sign of Capricorn. And first, we are going to be looking at what the energies of these three planets are. And then we are going to be looking at what Capricorn is, what the energies of Capricorn are. And then we're going to be considering every ascendant sign and see what effects are going to be felt. Well, of course, it's a general forecast because it depends very much on what planets are doing in your own chart, and it depends what these represent in your chart. So, for instance, for a person, Saturn can be the soul planet. For another person, it can represent the spouse planet. So, of course, it can go very much into detail, but this general forecast is also something that's gonna be there in the background. So it's gonna be working. Yes, and I'm going to be referring while giving out this information to some paragraphs in the book that I co-wrote with my colleague Vedic astrologer Levi Kozan. And without further ado, let's get started. So Saturn. In ancient Sanskrit text, Saturn is described as being the oldest of the planets. It's described as being thin and long-bodied, so its influence is very constricting. If we compare it especially to Jupiter, who is said to be large-bodied, so Jupiter is expansion while Saturn is constriction. So this is a planet of elimination also, because it rules the elimination process in the body. It has to do with letting go of things that are no longer useful in one's life. And in the end, you know, Saturn is also connected in Vedic mythology to Yama, which is the god of death. So in the end, Saturn is the one that rids us of, you know, the last thing that we hold on to, which is our body. So, of course, Saturn is a cruel planet. It's felt as a, you know, as a constricting, as a restrictive influence, but it is also named in ancient texts Prasiddha, meaning remarkable, famous, well-known, and Pratita Karma, which means accomplished work. Also, in another very important text in Vedic astrology, a certain combination, Saturn in the 10th from the soul planet in the Navamsha, is said to give the effect of a life of accomplished deeds. So we have to have a rounded perspective on this Saturn. Of course, it's the dreaded planet that, you know, pushes us to let go of things. That's why people so much are afraid of the Saturn return and things like that. But in Saturn transits also on the ascendant, because of course we as humans, we want to avoid suffering, we want to avoid letting go. And Saturn is a planet that, you know, brings this suffering for us to, you know, let go of something that is no longer working. It's making it very clear, because Saturn is a planet of our complexes, also of our where we are least, you know, confident. Saturn is the planet that is responsible with doing the repetitive tasks and the tasks that are not so pleasant but very necessary in day-to-day life. So it has also but it has this cruel influence, because Saturn also rules chronic disease. It's also something that you can see coming. For instance, something that is produced by Mars is more sudden, so more violent. But with Saturn, you always see it coming. It's like an accumulation, a build-up of things. So that is the energy of Saturn in a nutshell. Wherever Saturn is, in whatever sign, in whatever house it is, it gives us a feeling of lack. It gives us, you know, this feeling that we have to work hard to accomplish that. So especially if you have Saturn on the angles, if you have Saturn on the ascendant or in the 10th house, you feel very pressured to do things very well, and you are very self-critical, because you want everything to be perfect. Also, if Saturn is your fourth lord, for instance, if you have the fourth cusp with Aquarius or Capricorn, then you probably felt that your mother was a very critical person in your life. If you have, you know, Saturn as the third lord or as the Bratru Karaka, which is the planet with the third highest degrees in the chart, then you felt that your siblings were very critical and you felt them as a very constricting influence, and so on. I'm just illustrating the, you know, Saturn's vibration. Numerologically, Saturn is related to number 7. So 7 in general can be connected to either the falling tower or death, the death card, and especially the black sevens to the falling tower, because it's something, you know, something, an active principle, a young side of Saturn. And the red sevens are, you know, a manifestation of Saturn that comes to us without us making, you know, a great effort. So it's like the death card. Saturn is a suppressing planet. It's a neuter planet. Saturn rules the astringent taste also. So again, another thing that helps us understand its constricting nature. Saturn always looks down. Every planet has a certain gaze. For instance, Sun and Mars always look up. They are ambitious, they are confident, they want to see what's ahead for them, while Saturn looks down. So it means that Saturn is preoccupied with very earthly things, and it's also a more, you know, a more realistic to pessimistic attitude. Depends on the condition of Saturn in your chart. So this is Saturn, one of the actors, one of these three factors that are going through Capricorn. The next one is the South Node. The South Node is not a planet, it's a point. It's a point that is created by the intersection of the Moon's path, the Sun's path, and the Earth's path. And this is especially visible during eclipses, visible as, you know, the dark spot on the sun or the moon that happens during eclipses. So the South Node is part of this axis, North-South Node. And it's the part that is more hiding, and it's more narrowing. And you know, it is said that the South Node has a certain mist that it envelops the house that it occupies in our chart. Also the the sign and the planets it joins. So in a person's chart, the South Node shows what they are confident with, what they, well, not really confident, what they are really skilled at because they invested a lot in past lives. So it's something that they're really confident, well, not confident again. So they're very good at, but other people can see they are very good at that, but they themselves cannot really see it because they have this underlying disappointment. And that is because they need to balance the south node, north node axis and go a little bit into the north node. So the south node also has this very spiritual connotation. It's connected to endings and you know, to a more spiritual approach to life. It's connected to the second sign, to the 12th sign of Pisces. It's connected to the number 9, which is again, it marks the ending of a cycle because it's the ninth graha. So while Saturn was the last, so the 7 of the embodied planets, the North Node is the last before the you know the 3 outer planets, numerologically, of course. So this south node has a connotation of conclusions, of completions, but they are not so um, controlled and so conscious as the ones brought by Saturn are, because Saturn is a very earthy planet. You know, it's our animalistic nature. It has to do with our survival instinct and our, you know, eagerness to reproduce, while the south node is more on a spiritual level, on a not so much earthy level. It's more a realization of you know the things around us. So it's a conclusion that we have about life. And so yes, again, it has an ending connotation, similarly to Saturn. And it's going to be also in Capricorn for a big chunk of time. And then the third planet, the third actor in this trio is going to be Pluto. Pluto is the last of the outer planets and corresponds to number 12, and it corresponds to the energy of Shiva, the destroyer, so something that purifies. So again, an ending connotation. It's very interesting how these 3 points that mark endings will be conjunct in the same sign for 17 months. So Saturn is an ending that is more earthly. It's like a realization that is more conscious, and it's very painful and real. The South Node is a more spiritual, hopefully, realization, something about our patterns of behavior in a certain area of our life. And Pluto is it's a more subconscious, but also painful, because Pluto is called the ego destroyer, the destroyer of the ego. So the destroyer of the persona, which is not actually ourselves, our true selves, but you know, the social construct, which is of course necessary up to some point so that we can operate in the world. But the more we identify, the more we think that our true nature is that persona, then Pluto is going to, you know, purify it. So it's going to be purifying us in the area that is, you know, represented by the house where it's going to be transiting, and of course the sign. So now we are talking about the sign of Capricorn. In Western astrology, Capricorn is seen as a goat, but in Vedic astrology, Capricorn is crocodile. So a creature that has a very thick skin and hasn't really changed much. It hasn't mutated or evolved or whatever during the thousands and tens of thousands of years, because it's such a rigid structure that works. In the human body, Parashara, the ancient text that is referential for all Vedic astrologers, Capricorn is assigned to the thighs. The thighs, we're thinking, okay, what are the thighs? It's just a fleshy bit that we have, more or less fleshy, of course, depending on the person. But what we don't realize maybe is that the thighs are the containers of the femur bone. And the femur bone is the strongest bone in our body. It's a bone that can sustain up to 30 times its weight. So it's a super resilient bone, just as the crocodile is a super resilient creature. And Capricorn as an archetype is this power, it's this ability to withstand the waves of time and just have this rigid structure that works and that is really fixed. So I'm also going to mention that the planets, they are conscious forces, they are active forces, while the signs such as Capricorn, that's an unconscious vessel or receptacle of the energies of the planet. So a certain planet in Capricorn is gonna operate in a different way than another planet in Capricorn, because some planets are compatible with this energy of Capricorn. For instance, Saturn in Capricorn, it's in its own sign, because Saturn is also something that has to do some repetitive tasks. It's something that is very slow to change, and Capricorn is very similar, so it keeps things together. And Mars is a planet that is exalted in Capricorn, and Mars is a planet that needs to react in times of danger and in times of crises, and it needs to react in a grounded manner because Capricorn is an earth sign. So Mars does very well in Capricorn. It doesn't waste its energy haywire, or it doesn't go crazy. It doesn't waste its energy where it doesn't need to be wasted. It's very efficient and focused and just takes care of its duties in this earth sign that is Capricorn. So I'm just going to share a few words about Capricorn, again from our book Astrology Explained, Ancient Principles for the Modern Mind. I'm going to put a link below if you want to order the book. In addition to the fact that Capricorn is connected to this femur, if you look at ancient Egyptian depictions, had these staffs, that were ending with like a ball joint, just like the femur bone, and with a ball joint. So this femur is the sign of Capricorn. It has this connotation of power, of authority. Personality gives us structure, just like Capricorn is the part of us designed to keep us together so that we can operate in the world. And another thing about Capricorn is that it's a tamasic sign, and that resonates very well with the energy of the two tamasic planets, Saturn and Mars. So its motivation is to avoid suffering. That's why Capricorn creates this tougher outer shell, because it wants to protect itself from the dangers of the world. And that's why Capricorn is such a dutiful sign, because it thinks that by fulfilling its duties, it's going to be fine. And there is no such thing as a good or bad sign or a good or bad planet. as I said, some planets are good in Capricorn because Capricorn, you know, it's a part of the zodiac and it's necessary, it's important for our, you know, life on this earthly plane. But at the same time, the Sun, for instance, is not very happy in Capricorn. Jupiter, for instance, is debilitated in Capricorn because these two planets are sattvic planets, and they are they want to manifest the part of us that is true to ourselves, that comes truly from our inspiration, from what our soul desires. And the Sun in Capricorn, for instance, tends to um, be stuck in this rigid Capricorn structure instead of, you know, moving forward with its ideals. And this, you know, this can be manifest concretely in the real world as people being too preoccupied with their status and authority instead of what they truly want. And then Jupiter in Capricorn. Jupiter wants to expand. Jupiter wants to have, you know, a long-term vision. But this sign of Capricorn, it's like a shell, a very rigid shell that prevents Jupiter from shooting out its arrows, shooting out its bows towards a greatest ideal, a higher purpose. It's too mundane for Jupiter. That doesn't mean that people who have these combinations are doomed, but they just have to realize some things about themselves and why they were born with this combination. It's something to overcome. So a person with Jupiter in Capricorn needs to be more optimistic and needs to you know, find a connection to something higher, which is beyond social status and, you know, very worldly things. Okay, so now that we spoke about these important actors that are going to be taking place in this, you know, are going to be acting in this a transit that's going to be taking 17 months, and that we also talked about the sign of Capricorn. Let us share the screen once again. Yes, so this is the day when Saturn is going to go into Aquarius, so it's going to break this trio of endings and completions. So I guess for everyone, depending where the sign of Capricorn falls in their chart, it's going to be a time for letting go, which is Saturn, eliminating behaviors that do not work. It's going to be a time of a deeper realization of their behavior patterns, which is Ketu. They're going to realize that, you know, maybe they were thinking they were behaving differently than their parents, or, you know, but they will realize, they will come to some conclusions about also some underlying behavior patterns, which is K2, and hopefully connect to something which is higher, you know, to have a more all-encompassing attitude and to have a more divine friendship with life, which is of course Ketu, the South Node. And of course Pluto in Capricorn will break whatever construct, whatever residue, whatever unconscious residue of ego there is left around this sign of Capricorn. Yes, so it's gonna be a very, I mean, it's not gonna be an easy time because, of course, letting go is never easy for us as humans. We always like to cling on to things more than necessary, although these things are not usually beneficial. the more the more you try to cling on to these things that Capricorn represents in your chart, or in general, the more difficult your life will be. So yes, for instance, for people with a Capricorn ascendant, it will be, it will have to do with their identity and their path. Like they will have to let go of who they think they are, but they're just too fixated on who they thought they were. But they need to realize, that's not who I really am, and they need to move forward and beyond that. For Sagittarius ascendant, Capricorn is their second sign from the ascendant, so they need to maybe let go of some people in their close environment, like close friends, close family. They need to have some conclusions in regards to their friends, their close friends and family, and also to their resources, to the way they handle finances and their financial responsibilities. It's going to be very purified, this attitude. If you have a Scorpio ascendant, then Capricorn is the third sign from your ascendant. So you're gonna have a lot of, coming to some conclusions about your siblings, about your teammates, about technical learning, some technical learning that you're doing, about your courage in general. So the way you assert yourself in life, and also to let's see, also maybe if you are into writing, about writing. Okay, if you are a Libra ascendant, then Capricorn will be your fourth sign, and these planets there, they're gonna make you let go of maybe some something to do with your home, something to do with your property, your land, or your car, or your mother, or your peace of mind. I'm saying or because there's more than 12 types of people in the world. So if you want to get like a detailed analysis what this transit can do for you, you can contact me or another capable astrologer. Yes, so for Libra ascendant, their peace of mind will be very much tested. But it's going to be, all these transits, they are not here to punish you, they are here to help you to arrive to some conclusions and to eliminate things that are not true to who you are. So always think of these experiences as you know some challenges, but some challenges that will always make you stronger and more aware of who you are. And then for Virgo ascendant, these three factors will be in the fifth, transiting their fifth. So some issues with their creativity, some issues with their children. Maybe they're too hung up on their children, too clingy, and they need to let go a little bit, to realize that they have their own lives. Also, yes, also the creative projects, maybe they are approaching them in a manner that's not working, so they need to come to grips with it and move on. Or if you're very religious, the fifth house also has to do with religious rites. So maybe the way you are performing your puja or whatever religious rite is going to get a bit tested, and maybe you want to try a different approach. If your ascendant is Leo, then these planets in Capricorn will be transiting your sixth cusp, and that's pretty difficult because the sixth has to do with health. So you may have some health challenges, so that you need to adopt a healthier lifestyle. You need to take some steps to improve your health. And then you need to, the sixth also has to do with overcoming enemies. So you need to take, some rational approach to make a strategy. Maybe you'll have, some legal battles that you feel that are lingering for a very long time. But definitely there will be some conclusions with that. And if your ascendant is Cancer, then these elements will be transiting your seventh cusp. So a lot of conclusions, a lot of realizations, and letting go in regards to your attitude towards relationships. Some relationships will break, of course, if they're not true, because also the North Node will be on your ascendant. So, but it doesn't have to end your relationship. It will just end your unrealistic expectations about that relationship, which is Saturn, and also your ego needs for fulfillment in that relationship, which is Pluto, and will bring some more spiritual conclusion, which is Ketu, in regards to your relationship to your significant other and to your business partner and to the public if you're a public person. Then if you're a Gemini ascendant, these planets will be transiting your 8th. That's a very sensitive transit because the 8th is our vulnerabilities. It's connected to the sign of Scorpio. It's inner battles, but it can also be legal battles again. So lawsuits, and it can also be other people's property, so some issues with some inheritances in other people's money. And also the occult and finding a deeper truth about yourself. So it's coming to grips with what your weaknesses, what your vulnerabilities and complexes are, just seeing them very clearly and just moving forward. And maybe also cultivating, developing a more in accepting attitude about these things, a more this is how it is, and I need to accept it and move on. And then for Taurus ascendant, these planets will be transiting their 9th. The 9th has to do with pilgrimages, but also other types of long distance travels, like going to conferences or whatever, but it's going to be long distance travel. It has to do with your teachers, it has to do with your parents as a unit, it has to do also maybe with your marriage, with publishing. So all these things will be tested if you are a Taurus ascendant. So this is an area of coming to conclusions about these things. So maybe your teachers have reached the limit, and they can't teach you anything more, and you need to just let go of them and do more things on your own. Then if you're an Aries ascendant, then Capricorn is going to be in your 10th. So you're going to feel a lot of pressure from the outside world. You're going to feel a lot of pressure about your career, about your occupation, about how other people see you. You're going to ask yourself if this is the right path for you, or you should be doing something else. And you're going to be feeling that it's not quite satisfying, because the South Node is there, and the South Node, wherever it is, it gives this feeling of dissatisfaction. And also Pluto is there, so you're going to get a lot of ego bashing in regards to your public image and your career and the great deeds that you do out there in the world. But it's all for your good. It's all that wants to take you to a place where you realize you come to to a conclusion, to a realization about this, and hopefully let go of what's no longer working, be that something very concrete or just your attitude about it. If you're a Pisces ascendant, then Capricorn will be transiting these three south nodes, Saturn and Pluto will be transiting the 11th from your ascendant, so you're gonna have to let go of some friends, some groups of friends. You're gonna have to come to grips about what validation from your peers really is. You're also gonna have to, some titles or some gains. Maybe they will come, but they won't be as satisfying as you thought they would be, and they will teach you some, ego lessons about what's more important in life. Yes, because the North Node will be in the 5th, which is like consistency and trying to develop, something creative that is your own in a consistent manner. So you're gonna have this tension between validation and groups and gains and diplomas, and really doing what is right for you, what is true to your path. And then for Aquarius ascendant, Capricorn will be in the 12th, Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node will be in the 12th. And that is going to be difficult for, long-term investment. It's going to be difficult for very distant journeys. It's gonna be difficult because it's gonna make you wonder if it's worth pursuing. So if it's worth like being in this more abstract setting rather than fulfilling your day-to-day duties, which is the 6th house related to Virgo. So it's not going to be easy, this 12th house transit for Aquarius ascendant. You're gonna, have a lot of expenses because 12th house is also expenses. But expenses hopefully to improve their 6th, to improve their health, to improve their position, their stability. But also, yeah, it's a lot of conclusions. Ketu in the 12th for them, it's a very important transit. So for Aquarius ascendant and for Leo ascendant, because the nodes will be in the 6th and 12th, it's going to be a trigger transit, like some unusual things will happen in regards to the way they perceive 6th house things, and like work and working for other people or doing your duties, and 12th house, which is more like being isolated and traveling to faraway places, and coming to a conclusion about life in general, because Ketu in the 12th is said to be a good placement for spirituality, for coming to grips, for coming to conclusions, and just sighing, a sigh of relief, because you're part of something greater, and you have to let go of control a bit and not be so uptight as Capricorn is. Yes, so thank you very much for watching. Make sure you watch the other videos, and make sure you click subscribe if you want to see more videos. I'm gonna link down below the book that I co-wrote and I referred to in this video, which is called Astrology Explained: Ancient Principles for the Modern Mind. It's an ebook that we self-published. I don't know if this week, but next week I'm going to do a live session where I'm going to do some mini readings for you guys, as I promised, because I reached 700 subscribers. So thank you very much for those who subscribed and for those who stayed on from the beginning. So I'll see you again soon. Bye.